Hey everyone, Jim Phoenix here, and I cannot wait for this next What's Kraken. We've got none other than the award a winning director and writer, and just honestly, overall good guy. Stimson Snead with Tim Travers and the Time Traveler's Paradox. Say that 15 times real fast, and you will summon Pazuzu. All this and more in the next What's Kraken. Hit it. Hey everyone, Jim Phoenix here, and boy am I excited for this next What's Cracking. We've got none other than Stimson Snead. That's right, if you've seen anything from Tim Travers, oh, I'm gonna drop that right now. You know exactly what we're talking about. If you read anything from Bleeding Ink, you know exactly what I'm talking about right now. If you've seen his website, you probably should know. It's not like a random Google search, really. But first of all, thank you very much for coming in. It's a great honor to have you here. And as an award-winning director, I like the hyphenation, the award-winning director. I have to ask some questions. I have to ask some questions about directing. I have to ask some. Are you ready?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's
All right.
let's get cracking.
Aha! I'm gonna steal that. Hold on. No. When you are into the planning phase, see, I'm gonna back it up to the planning phase. I know you're also writing the things that you direct. Is
Yeah.
there ever a time when you're writing, like, for example, Tim Travers and a Time Traveler's Paradox, which I believe comes out next year? Well, can't wait. When you're writing that, you're going, God, I have to direct this later on. How can I possibly get this scene done? Is there any time that you stop yourself as a writer because your director hat comes on?
Oh, never, never. In fact, I've got an ego about a mile deep. I'm convinced that with an adequate amount of money, I can certainly direct anything. What will stop me is the reality of, yes, I do love this space battle, but my average budget is like $5. So unless it's going to be ships on strings, which I did actually do that one time, unless it's
Cool.
going to be ships on strings, it's not realistic. So it's not the ability to direct it that will make me slow down. It's the producer hat going, yeah,
Okay.
you don't have the ability to blow up a building. At least not without ending up on some lists you don't want to be on.
Right. I can appreciate that. And I like the answer because you're saying that no matter what, you've got your writer hat is your writer hat. Boom. Every once in a while, you have the critical eye, the lens of the budget, but you still allow yourself the wiggle room of like, well, we can maybe work this one out.
Well,
Now,
as a director, it's like one of the joys of being a director is challenging yourself. So, like, I'll come across certain kinds of scenes, and it's not, I think I'm amazing and therefore I can
right,
direct anything. It's, well, I might completely fuck this up, but I still really want to try because
right.
I think it'd be really interesting. I've not done this style of film before, I've not done this kind of scene, and I want to see if I can preferably with somebody else paying for it if I get it wrong.
And that's art. Honestly, it's like, can I do this? Am I able to? And let's just find out. And you never know what you might start out with might turn into something bigger and better. Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong, but your new feature film, Tim Travers and the Time Traveler's Paradox, that actually starts off as a short, right?
Yeah,
Like
and
the
by the way, try
concept.
saying that title 3 times fast.
I am dyslexic. Okay, I am dyslexic. I looked at the title. I'm like, oh, you guys just hate me right now, do you?
Oh,
There's
I'm
no way.
dyslexic too. I made
Okay,
that title
you
just
made
to
it.
torture my fellow people.
Oh, thank you. High five. Thank you much for that. Keeps on our toes. But
Yeah,
yeah, did you do not have this in your mind saying I can make a small short right now, and then later on
yeah.
this becomes something?
Well, usually that's what you're supposed to do. For the record,
Right,
like every short should be a stepping stone to a bigger project. I mean, just
right,
from a pure business standpoint, there is no such thing as a profitable short. No matter how much you spend on a short, you are wasting money. So given the fact that because there's no market to sell them. I
yeah.
mean, you might win a lottery and have it blow up on YouTube, but even people with millions of views, if it's just one video, make pennies on the dollar.
It's a demo reel.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. It's got
yeah.
to be a
It's a
stepping stone to something
yeah.
else. So typically, what a lot of people will do is a short is them feeling out what they want a feature to be. So that's what you're supposed to do. I actually didn't do that for Tim
Really.
Travers. There was a different feature that I'm working on called Treat Street that I had attached a fantastic studio up in Washington State called North by Northwest. And it occurred to me given how experienced this studio was, that if I got to shoot Treat Street, as the director, I would be the least experienced person on set for that scale of, because while I've done many projects, they've all been on this extreme indie scene.
Right.
Whereas North by
Right.
Northwest is a real top tier studio. Like the entire TV show Z Nation, that's them.
Yeah.
So
It's quite major.
and so I wanted to introduce myself to their workflow. And so I had this script that I wrote one drunken evening at a film festival and called Tim Travers. And I realized, okay, what if I just take this one little short, but we pretend it's a feature? We're just going to shoot it as though it is 20 pages of a feature, but we're going to go full budget. Can I manage a team like this? Let's do it on a project where if I screw up, the consequences are minor because it's not a movie's budget. It's
Right.
like, it can be a gosh darn it, I learned something from it. So that when I get into the feature, it could be a bigger, I would know what I'm doing. And then what happened a couple months out from when we were going to do the Treat Street feature is the budget completely fell through. So I found a backup budget at half the value. And it's like, all right, I've got about $2 million to work with. What can I shoot at 2 million? And I realized the short film, because it had been doing so well in festivals, was as close to a market testing as I was ever going to get. So from the day we decided to make Tim Travers the feature to when we rolled camera was 90 days. When we made the decision, 90 days out from rolling camera, there was not even a script. There was
Really?
just the short. And my confidence, I remember calling up the lead actor from the short and being like, hey, you had a lot of fun with this character. How would you feel if we did a feature of it?
That's ballsy.
Oh yeah, like
That's
the set designer Vincent DeFelix, he built this incredible 24-foot tall time machine prop, which nearly killed him building it. And I remember calling and being like, "Hey, remember that prop that nearly killed you? I need you to build it a second time, but slightly bigger."
but a little bit bigger. And that's the coolest thing because I was looking through it. I'm like, I saw some photos from the set. I'm like, I love it. That's a thing that you just your eyes completely go to. I'm like, my God, that's gorgeous. That's real. That's that's
That is
wow.
100% a physical prop.
Really.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well,
The
hats
only
off.
I don't know if you've seen the short. The only CG in the short is just him blowing up. And a lot of the split screens, because it's a time travel film, so there's a lot of Sam Dunning interacting with Sam Dunning.
Right.
The
Hello.
feature is substantially bigger, effects wise.
Right. So, what? Okay, is it budget wise that you went against CGI, or because you more want practical effects, anyways? I
Both.
guess it's both.
Both. Uh, I don't understand how Hollywood accountants keep thinking that it's cheaper to do CG. It is absolutely not cheaper to do CG. It is cheaper if you're doing it yourself and you're not paying someone. That is the only time CG saves you money. This whole thing that CG is cheaper is an absolute misnomer. The reason big studios do it is it allows them to go back and change stuff constantly, which is what's leading to a lot of problems with big Hollywood films that I won't name right now that people are complaining loudly about because the money's not on the screen. It is almost you always cheaper to do it practically. And personally, I just think it looks better. So we've got a great little CG team, but there's only so much they can do. So yeah, our physical props are all real, our space is all real, but we still use a lot of CG in the feature. But it's stuff like when the tins are spontaneously combusting.
Right.
We do a lot more advanced versions of the split screens than we ever did in the short film. So now we
And
have a
that's
bunch of lookalike actors so that he can physically interact with himself.
oh, that's cool.
And then there's explosions and stuff like that. And when you get into the realm of explosions on the indie scene, that's where it's cheaper to go CG. Just because I do not have the ability to blow stuff up safely.
Safely, and that's expensive. I remember being on one movie. It was an indie film, and most of the budget was an explosion. I was
Yeah,
like, I
it
was like,
happens.
what? And the other was like, and a helicopter shot for the explosion. I'm like, really? That's the entire
I
budget,
wouldn't trust myself to remember to have the camera turned on. So
right? It's like get one chance of this. That's it. Well,
yeah.
that's wonderful. And when we won't mention other movies, but I think we all had one or two come to mind when you said
Oh,
like the
one or two,
problems of
or
like
let's say largest franchises.
Yeah, yeah, that's unfortunate. I need to take a small drink, but, from my oh,
Oh, yeah.
my,
I'm
prop
glad you're
cup.
doing video.
Yeah,
Subtle.
right? Subtle, very subtle, very subtle. And that's the you have to be, I think, a fan of the movies and be able to see what you really want come to life on screen. And I think because you are the writer director, you have both visions of it. Now, when you are in the middle of filming a scene, is there any time you thought, "Oh, I need to have like a rewrite"? Like, who wrote this? Who wrote this?
Oh,
Oh,
every
it's that.
oh god. I mean, are you asking, am I ever worried about the quality of the writing while I'm filming it? There's never a moment that I'm not cringing at every word I wrote. It's just,
Oh,
oh god, no. I don't like my own writing. I
really?
enjoy it and I do it, but in the moment you can't stand hearing it. But the trick there is to surround yourself with people more talented than you. Have actors who are better actors than you are a writer. They will make the writing better. Have better
They will pull
camera
it off.
people than you. When in doubt, always just surround yourself with talented people. I'm very lucky. The film stars Sam Dunning. Sorry, I got to do some name dropping. So, in addition to starring Samuel Dunning, we also star Felicia Day, Joel
Right.
McHale, Danny Trejo, and Keith David. Any one of these actors is so good and so seasoned. I'm confident I could give them a great big steaming pile of shit, and they would still know how to polish that turd
Oh,
and
absolutely.
make it seem good.
It's
So
a
that's the trick.
franchise.
Have talented people.
They're beyond okay. Let's get into the talent. 'Cause I was looking at this cast. I'm like, my God, Keith David. Okay, there is a wealth of fans that keep for Keith David in multiple genres,
Oh yeah,
and
myself included.
he's yeah, it's amazing. Joel McHale. We all know him from somehow he went to community college for like 12 years and pulled it off.
And he's going back to community college. They're in production
I,
right now.
it's like it's and please. Okay, if you have not seen anything in the last, I don't know, since the internet was born, Felicia Day has to be your top of the list, right? I mean,
Oh,
she's just
absolutely.
amazing in everything she does.
Oh
And
yeah.
then we have, oddly, one of the nicest guys in the world, always plays the tough guy, Danny Trejo.
Oh yeah, just such a sweet, sweet man. And they were all wonderful to work with, but they were all different to work with in their
Yeah.
own ways. Like Joel is an improv machine. Like we have a scene that we had to cut down to 5 minutes that originally we had like a 12 and a half minute version, which was just letting him go off book any way he wanted. And it
Which
was
is great.
all of it comedy gold. Keith is just the most consummate professional in the world. He was kind of our Hail Mary, actually. We
Really?
cast him not even 40, maybe 72 hours before he was on set. We had
Oh my
that
God.
confirmed, like the offer went out. So, like, he was an absolute Hail Mary pass.
That is a very good. I'm trying not to make a Packer or a Cowboy fans reference right now, but that's the immaculate reception right there.
Oh, yeah. And he was just a pleasure to have on set. Danny is, believe everything you've heard, Danny Trejo is the sweetest man you've ever met in the world.
And he's got great food. I mean, he has, I think he still has Trio Tacos in
Oh,
LA,
yeah.
right?
I
Yeah.
may order Trejo's tacos today on Uber. It's pouring rain out here in LA. I don't feel like going out, and I could go for some Trejo's tacos. Yeah,
Everyone
plug for
should.
Danny Trejo. I might be ordering Trejo's tacos.
You heard it here first. And the coolest thing is about your movie, that's the supporting cast. That's the supporting cast.
Oh yeah, that's just supporting roles. The
You've
only
got
one who was
Sam
there for more
Dunning.
than 2 days was Felicia, because Felicia's character is a bit bigger than the others.
That's
So we
amazing.
had Felicia out for about a week and a half on set.
Felicia out for a week and a half on set. Now, when you're pitching it to these, because I think you had correct me if I'm wrong again. Sam was the original for
Tim
the
Travers.
short. So
Yeah,
Tim Trent,
yeah,
right?
and he reprised the role for the feature. I'll be honest. I don't think I would have done the feature if I wasn't able to get Sam to come back. Samuel Dunning may not be the biggest name of these actors, but believe me when I say he absolutely owns this performance, beginning to end.
His body of work. I mean, Blue Bloods alone.
Oh yeah, Samuel
Amazing.
Dunning is great. So I don't believe I would have done the film had I not been able to get Sam.
And that's the cool part. It's as an actor, like was it? There's no small roles. and like it could be a short, he could have tossed away, like I don't want to do that again. But there must be something about either working with you and working with the character he really connected with. I mean, he came back.
Yeah. And for the life of me, I have no idea what it could be because it's definitely not my good natured attitude.
Good. How are you on set then? Let's get those rumors. No, there's no
I
rumors.
think I'm a peach. I think I'm a good natured peach.
Well, I think you have to honestly. I think you have to be because a we do research and no one's talking like I was one on this one of his movies. I could never again. It's never. You don't hear nothing like that about you whatsoever. And B, those people you name, they wouldn't stand for it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like they would just like I'm out by. It's like
Yeah.
they were just like gone.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I think that's
They've
a
got all the power in the room. Don't get me wrong. I have no misunderstandings about who the power players are on that set.
now when you said you didn't have a script from so 90 days from yay we're doing it to like oh shit I need to write this now.
Yeah, rolled
Ha-
camera. We
yeah,
rolled camera 90 days from the day I decided to make the film. So I had the
that
script about 20 days later. Not a good version, but enough. So with the script
enough,
writing
right?
process for production, a lot of the time you don't actually need the script to be good. You just need to know, all right, here are your locations, so everybody else can start getting prepped on pre-production. So I
Okay.
was still fine-tuning the script up to maybe a week before we rolled because I was by the time we rolled camera, I was confident we had a good script. But that first draft was really more just for production department and
Right.
pre-production, just so we could go, all right, we need X, Y, and Z. We can start encountering things. It's like, all right, we need a time machine. What's it going to look like? That. Okay,
There are
let's build
locations done.
it.
No, absolutely. And this is okay, that's still amazing though. Did you tell the actors that you didn't have a script yet?
No,
Did you like
by the time I offered them a role,
okay,
they had
okay,
scripts
good.
by the time I offered them a role. And we were casting really late in the game. Like Keith David, we cast all of maybe 3 days before he was on
Right.
set. We confirmed Joel maybe 2 weeks
Oh
before
wow.
the first day of filming. Felicia was all of maybe 3 or 4 days before we started, and Danny was around the same time. Like we had offers out to actors while we were already filming. So by the time any of the actors were even getting offers, the script was done and
Pretty much
actually
good.
pretty polished at that
Okay,
point.
I was like my God, because that time frame is tiny. It's tiny.
Yeah, the
That's
only actor who was seeing the crummy version of the script was Sam.
and so I was like, ah, we'll do it. So, he has
He had
some faith.
worked on the short. He trusted me. We had a good relationship,
Yeah.
and he knew I was actively making improvements. And I did reach out and solicit input from him, so he had a fair amount of say on the development of his own character. So
I was gonna ask about that next. Brilliant. So when you are writing and you take the actors' input for their own characters, do you also take it from like when Danny's coming in and Danny looks, I don't think my character would say this. I think it'll be more like this.
absolutely, there's an attitude a lot of writers have that I do, which I suppose for a lot of writers it's earned, but in my case it's definitely not earned. They have this: I have written Shakespeare and my every word is gold. I do
Mm,
not have that attitude towards my own writing. My philosophy on set is I always just want the best movie possible. And the
yeah.
best movie possible is the one where I accept that there are going to be good ideas that don't come from me. And sometimes it's just little things. There was a joke actually in the film regarding a character who's on the spectrum, which I was unaware of the fact that the terminology had changed in the last couple years. And the term I was using, I won't use it here, was now
Right.
considered offensive. And that was something where we didn't even change the nature of the joke, but Felicia pointed it out to me. And it was like, oh, well, we can change the wording because the point of the joke was never to punch down. The point of the joke was to get this other idea across. So let's reword it to get this other idea.
Oh, it's good. Yeah.
So, and that wasn't any maliciousness on my part. I just straight up had no idea until Felicia pointed it out to me.
And because you can take those notes, that makes you a better writer than most. And that might be because of the director's hat saying, you need to make this work. Like, yeah, that's right. I get it. No, we have to do it this way. I dig that. I dig that. I think this goes into our next thing. If you have to pick one career, only one career, what are you gonna do? Is it writing, directing?
Directing every time.
Every time. Why?
Oh yeah, love it. When you're on set, the joy of being a director is you get to have your fingers in all the pies. You get to be affecting the performances. You get to be affecting the camera. You get to be affecting your shot composition,
Right.
your writing. There isn't a part of it you don't get to put your finger on the scale. And if you're lucky enough to work with extremely talented people, a lot of the time you can have a very light touch. Like the ideal production is one where my job is actually the least important. Like that
Really.
is one where that is where everything has come together beautifully. There is a shared vision. Oftentimes the main job of the director is just keeping everybody focused on what that consistent vision is across the board.
I can dig that. I can dig that, and I can see that. I can see that. I can see the lore from that. I can, but there's always a but here.
Yeah.
But would that also mean that you would give up writing comics?
Hmm?
Hmm.
Not really, because that's something I could do on the side. And for the
Ah,
record, I've never made a cent at it.
okay. For Bleeding Ink, I've been looking. I've been looking through the comics, and there's some that hit a little too hard home, especially the M Night Shyamalan doing the Mandalorian. Like, oh, they just
Yeah.
piled on. You just piled on right there, man.
But you know, Bleeding Ink is is my little web comic I do on occasion. I call it my periodic act of desperation because I will not work on it for a few years at a time, and then I'll work on it for about a year of just putting out new jokes. Right now it's on a hiatus, but the last time I was pumping it out aggressively was during the first year of the pandemic, where I had a lot of downtime and
Uh,
a lot of stuff I needed to vent.
See, I was going to ask about that. So during the pandemic, I'm guessing you weren't shooting because the
No, I
world
wasn't.
shut down for a bit. So you went into the more of the drawing, the more of the things you can do at home, the more you can kind of push out and still make your artistic voice heard a bit. Yes.
Yeah, and also Bleeding Ink, it is one of those things I always just go back to periodically when my life is at a standstill. It's had three major times it's come out. It originally started as a college newspaper comic, like it was actually a physical print comic way back in the day.
There was print.
Yeah, it was a college. I mean, nothing bragworthy here. It was a college newspaper. Although I am proud of the fact that I apparently had some of their all-time highest number of
Nice.
complaints for the
Good
content,
for
which I
you.
take a certain pride in to this day.
Good for you. But that just means people read you. That's exactly it. Like, no matter how many complaints you get, it's like being a wrestling heel. It means people are booing for you.
Oh, absolutely. And you got to remember, to a 21-year-old college kid, people complaining about you is a point of pride. You know,
Yeah.
just little edge lord Stimson, just wanting to offend everybody. I revisited it again in my late 20s when I was taking care of my mom for a bit, and I had a lot of it come out then. And then the most recent surge was during the pandemic. Yeah, so
So when you needed the most, it came out. I dig it. So it's like your connection to like channeling everything that's kind of like angst. Like, oh, sorry, I was like hit my own mic and try and get it out into ink.
yeah,
Bleeding.
it's a nice thing. It's a nice thing to do, and it's one of the reasons I like it is because it's so removed from anything I do for money, for profit, for
Right.
career. It is something that is a complete write off. It is a hobby, but one that I enjoy. The biggest shift with it is that eventually it moved to my Instagram. So,
Oh, I was gonna say your Instagram is at Stimson's StimsonSnead for Instagram, and we were on your Instagram. Like, I think that's a great way of doing it. I mean, just get it out, boom, snip it, and go. It can always hit the movies as well. And so, once the pandemic started waning down, how quickly did you go back to movies? Like,
almost
okay,
immediately.
as soon as you can
It
shoot,
was in 2020 that we were originally scheduled to shoot the Tim Travers short, but
right?
we were waiting for November. And if you remember November 2020, I think, oh God, which variant was it? I want to say Delta.
Uh,
We've had so many variants, but it was the first big variant spike that hit. And so we pushed it to March of 2021 is when we filmed on it. And then we went to festival in 2022. And near the end of 2022, that's when it was like, oh shit, well, I guess we're going to make a feature out of this thing.
okay, I am glad you brought the festivals, and that makes you really energized for the feature because I know a lot of movies just got killed during that time. No
Oh,
puns with
absolutely.
like the
It was a
festivals
bloodbath.
were, yeah.
It was
How
the
did
only
you
reason I was ever able to get a studio like North by Northwest to do a show. So North by Northwest, Z Nation, Smoke Signals, they've done a lot of actual big movies through there.
Right.
I was the first short they had ever done. They
I
had
love
never
it.
even done a short. They had only done TV shows and features. And I am convinced the only reason I was ever even able to do the short was mostly because they had nothing else to do with the pandemic at the time.
But Clay, they could very well. Yes, I know maybe that's they were kind of like, oh, we need something, but I think it's just the quality of your work. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's the quality of work. They could have absolutely said like, no, we're going to do our
Well, we had
internal.
already signed to do Treat Street with them, the
Right,
feature that fell through. So there was already a working relationship going on. But it
right.
was funny when I sat down and talked with Rich Cowan, with, the executive producer at North by, and if you check Rich Cowan's resume, it's longer than most people's. His resume is longer than
Socks.
most people's dream lists. It is incredible the number of big things you've heard of this man's worked on over the years. And I remember him just being like, "Well, we've never done a short before. Sure, let's try it."
How many millions do you need for a short, anyways? Like, wait,
Yeah,
what millions?
thankfully, we were not in the millions for sure. Thank you. We were decidedly smaller budget than that.
Oh, but by little. See, I think that somehow you worked some kind of voodoo magic and made it really big in the festival. So you have to walk me through that. So you get the short, and then are you like, yeah, we got this out, and all the festivals are closed, open, closed, open,
Uh,
closed?
it did both. So what happened with Tim Travers, the short? So I made the short originally, like I was saying, mostly because I just wanted to meet the North by North team. It was to me, it was an investment in prepping myself for Treat
Right,
Street. That was
right.
really Tim Travers' only goal, and it was just a script that I really liked and I wanted to shoot. And I'd met Sam recently, and once I met him, it was like, oh, that's my guy. That's my Tim
Everyone.
Travers. When I met him, and I had met him at a festival right before the pandemic hit. So in May of 2020, so in early May of 2020, when
That was
everything was
only
shutting down.
3 years ago, and it seems so
Oh
long
God,
ago.
yeah. So by the time we finished the Tim Travers short, we were into the beginning of 2022, where the pandemic was mostly done at that point. So we actually were timed that we came out just as all the festivals were opening up again. And that's what gave me the confidence to do it as a feature, which was when I put it out there, I kind of had no expectation for it at all. Because
Right.
again, it was something I had done with this sort of ulterior business motive. And then it just started killing it. So it premiered at Boston Sci-Fi, which is was wonderful for me because Boston Sci-Fi was the festival I was at that gave me the idea to write the original script in the first
That's
place.
awesome.
So premiering there was fantastic, and we took Best of Fest in the short category. Then we went to Nevermore Film Festival in Raleigh, and all these awards behind me are from Nevermore, where we did kind of a clean sweep: Best of Fest,
Wow.
Best Short, Best Actor, Best Director, and then we went to Film Quest. We were at probably close to a dozen big festivals that year.
Very cool.
Yeah, so we were just killing it on the
That
festival scene with Tim Travers.
that's very cool. And do you think the reason why it hit so hard is because after those years of lockdown, people dying and everything, the uncertainty of it, just to see some little bit relief?
I don't think so.
No.
Because I really don't actually, because the short is as mean spirited Rick and Morty style humor as it gets. I think the reason it did well is just the Tim Travers character and the way Sam embodies him. He is an
Plays it off.
incredibly unique, interesting character. The way the guy was structured in the script, the entire premise behind him writing wise was what if you took a story where the character will always do the scientifically interesting thing? Not the smartest thing, not the thing that's going to move the story along, not the thing that's going to display emotional growth, but anytime he deals with a scientific question, his immediate go to will always be what's the most interesting interpretation of that, at the expense of good storytelling. In a lot of
No.
ways, short is very non traditional in that regard. And that's what I think resonated with audiences because we don't see characters like Tim very often.
Right. So you're saying because, well, we all know that Sam Dunning is a massively talented actor. Could you have seen that short with that success with a different actor?
I don't think so. So when I originally wrote the short, so I was at Boston Sci-Fi and I watched
Right,
a time travel film that was there that I won't name because I don't wish to be mean. But I remember it. But it was a very classic science fiction time travel story in which they used time travel as a metaphor for the human condition and character
right.
growth. And I hated it because to me the characters were idiots, just absolute idiots characters. I hated it, and I got really drunk after hanging out with a friend of mine from MIT who was in town, who had come out to support my film that was there, and I basically outlined the entire script of what I would want a time travel film to be on a napkin while blackout drunk. And then the next morning, while still fighting a hangover, I wrote the first draft of the Tim Travers short. So in my mind, the person I would have cast was myself. And then I very quickly realized after reading it that, oh shit, I this is way over my head acting wise, and so I shelved it. It sat in just a folder for probably 6 months, and then I was at a festival in Washington D.C., which I'm spacing on the name of. It was a God. Okay, I feel bad now. It was a very small festival, and they did a panel where the panel was basically half the people in the audience because it was all the
Right.
filmmakers who were there. And on the panel was this guy who had done this vampire film called Rick and Ruby, and the actor's name was Samuel Dunning. And we just kind of hit it off. And as we're talking and chatting, and I'm watching his performance in Rick and Rudy, I'm kind of thinking, oh shit, that's Tim Travers.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, I had already it had been sitting in a drawer for 6 months when I met Sam.
That's amazing, and then from there, it grows, it gains momentum, and it becomes a Tim Travers and the Time Traveler's Paradox, the feature that's coming out next to 2024. I don't know
20,
I'm releasing this
it's,
now or next year or so.
depending on how you define release, it's coming out in a month and a half.
Month and a half.
In about a month and a half when we lock
Wow.
down our first festival releases, but I can't name them at this time. But we've already got the first two lined up, and it's looking like it's going to be a very big year for Tim Travers.
That's gonna be amazing. Now, when you're doing Tim Travers and the Time Traveler's Paradox, see, I can almost say it quickerly. I can't say quicker.
Well,
I
it's all
can't
play
say
a word.
quickly.
Tim Travers, time traveler.
Yeah,
It's
Time Travelers.
his name is meant to sound like the phrase time traveler.
I know. Oh, it's so amazing to do that. So when you're seeing this coming out in a circuit and the for next year, do you have high expectations? Are you like, I'm gonna kill everyone there? It's gonna be the most dominant. It's gonna be Godzilla. It's gonna crush.
I have very high expectations, but not like that. We
Okay.
are a very genre film. We are a very niche genre. I think our audience is going to love us. But our audience is probably not the sort of folks you're going to find at the big top tier film festivals that, are Academy qualifying, stuff like that.
Yet.
Like, we aren't the next Coda, shall we say.
But we have this thing. Okay.
But
I'm
that's not
thinking of a few
that's
things.
not me being modest. That's not a
Right.
knock against the film, but we are a grindhousey sort of film. Uh, and so I think our audience is going to love us. So we're going to have a big year. The big questions really is going to be when we line up our official distributor. And that's the thought that consumes my every waking moment.
Ooh, and now that all the strikes are kind of over, we can talk about these things.
Yes, we
So
can.
that was
Well, I
bizarre land
always,
for a while.
the DGA was never on strike. I could always talk about
I
it.
can do it now. But so when you are lining up a distributor, are you talking for feature or talking about streaming? What are we doing?
It's I would love to do a theatrical
Yep.
release with it, even a small limited theatrical. And people don't know this, but small limited theatrical does still happen. There are still small films like Tim Travers that go to 50, 60 screens. But, 50, 60 screens is a lot. And that can add up and on a budget as low as Tim Travers, which is only around a $2 million production.
Right.
It takes very little to put that into the black. I think what'll probably happen with Tim Travers is we're going to find a really good streamer who we can build a relationship with and sell it to them. And if any of those streamers are listening, I'm taking calls right now. We're
There
interested.
you go,
Let us
Arrow.
Amy.
There you go. Actually, a few are. So when we are going out with this, I love the idea of the movie. I love the idea how it came about. It's just an amazing things. Like I'm thinking all the things that we used to like do as shorts. I'm
Inspired by
like,
heavy
man,
drinking.
aren't most
Oh, yeah.
things. And it's like you tap into the universal unconscious and just put it like blackout. Here he goes. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, look, the script's done. Usually I'm like, whose number is this? You're like, oh, I haven't completed a script. Nice. You know, we all have different levels. So when you are getting together and without spoilers for Tim Travers and a Time Traveler's Paradox that are coming out next year, have you thought if this does really, really good, part two, part
I
three,
don't know.
part franchise?
I don't know. I would like to move on to a different script with a bigger budget. Now, to be clear, if it does well enough that people want a sequel, I have ideas.
Right.
I have ideas. So there's a lot I could do with the Tim Travers character, but it doesn't beg for a sequel. So I think if audiences want a sequel, that's something I'm definitely up for.
That's cool. So I was remembering David Schmiller with Puppet Master. We were talking about him or with him a long time ago. It's like, yeah, I thought Puppet Master would be like one and done.
Yeah,
Like I just don't want no rights at all. And that's like
I
a
know.
franchise. It's
Yeah,
like,
I know
whoops.
if we did Tim Travers, I would want to go bigger because the ideas Sam and I had when we talked about the character, there's just so much bigger places we want to go than the film does. And to be clear, the film goes to some really big places all on its own, but I'd like a bigger budget to work with. I recently secured the movie rights to Jam, the novel by Yahtzee Croshaw,
Really?
and that's what I'm potentially looking at as a follow up project to Tim Travers.
That's very okay. So you're going from like the pure imagination of Tim Travers and Time Traveler's Paradox, was coming out in 2024 early,
Yeah.
and then you took some money and you optioned the rights to Jam. Is that something you had your eyes on before, or is
Oh,
this
absolutely.
because of
I've been a fan of Yahtzee's writing for years, and his writing and my writing are extremely similar. It's one of the
okay?
reasons. So, like with Jam in particular of his books, it's like, oh, I want to write the adaptation of this. Everything about his style, that's me. This is just subject matter that I can have fun with.
That's awesome, and that's not the first time you did adaptations because you also adapted your own screenplay into a graphic novel, right?
Yeah, The Dogs. That was a screenplay. That was a screenplay that I did many years ago. Could not sell in spite of really popular positive feedback. Studios liked it. I got to take a lot of good pitches on it. The feedback was uniformly good, but it all came with the caveat that this is $100 million film. It needs to be a pre-existing thing.
Right.
So, if it needs to be a pre existing thing, I hired a phenomenal artist and we churned it into a graphic novel, which is basically a panel for panel adaptation of what a big budget movie version of it would be. And we are in talks right now with publishers. So, hopefully, we'll be seeing the graphic novel out, if not next year in 2025.
So you have a busy couple years coming up, man.
One would hope.
Yeah, knock on wood for that. So
Don't get
is
me
this
wrong,
where
I'm
you
still
like
getting plenty of time in there to play video games and struggle with self worth. You got to put the time aside as an artist for the self hatred.
I was like, yeah, I'm an award-winning director and I've got like a bunch of projects, but I don't know if I'm worthy of any of the that's the human condition right there. Like that is it. That is it. Like it was I'm not gonna say his name, but he's a pretty well-known actor. He's like, I got the biggest and most fragile ego in the world. You have to have the biggest one because you're doing some amazing things, but yet the most fragile one because you don't think you deserve any of the accolades that come
I
with those amazing things.
I did a wonderful shoot just this past weekend for a short called The Wax Girl, which was nothing but a love fest between myself and the crew from beginning to end. I received one note at one point, and I have obsessed over that one note ever since. It,
Right.
it was a love fest of a shoot, but I have thought day and night about
Just
that one comment of criticism.
that we are hardwired that way. We are hardwired that way. We're like, oh, it can't be this good, and then you'll find something. Well, I
Mm.
hope you do enjoy. I hope you enjoy all the success coming and all the things you have because Tim Travers and a Time Traveler's Paradox. I want the shirt. I want the lunchbox. I want the action figures. I want the video game.
I,
I
it'd be a
you
weird
wanna do
video game. I mean, there is a one-man gay orgy at one point in the film, so I'm not sure how you gamify that.
that'd be a great cutscene. I would love it.
uh, so everybody listening, so Tim Travers is going to festivals starting in February, and we're going to be on the festival circuit all year long. So watch if you're into the indie scene, follow your local film festivals. There's a good chance it's going to be coming near you in the coming year.
Absolutely.
Also, you should
And
just support film festivals in general. Just like
oh,
regardless of Tim Travers, you should all be going to support film festivals in general. That's a thing you should all do.
yeah, indies are a thing. Indianapolis. Are you coming to Gen Con? Because I think this will kill a Gen Con, by the way. If you can
I'm
say or
pretty
not, I
sure
can't say.
we have not submitted yet at this time, but it is on my radar.
Cool. Then
No.
I'll see you in next year in Indianapolis then.
Well, the thing is, the film is not finished till the end of January because we have
Mm.
still about 100 effect shots that are being finished up. So I don't want to submit to anybody that I don't absolutely have to submit until I have the complete finalized version of the film.
For the CGI, it's the orgy part, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
It's the orgy.
that's
I knew
part.
that'd be
I'm not
CGI
gonna lie,
orgy.
that's part of it.
See, it's so
By the
fun.
way, that
Like,
was day one of filming. That was day one.
did
If the
you
crew
really?
didn't know what they were in for before they got to set that day, they knew what they were in for by the time they left.
Oh god, that's brilliant. I love it. With that, I think that's the perfect topper. No pun. Tim Travelers in a Time Traveler's Paradox coming out to a bunch of places in 2024. I think that's next year. Yes, it is. I look at my own clock to
That's
make sure.
that's next. That's next week.
Oh my
2024
gosh.
is next week.
Oh, it's like we're on fast forward now. I love it. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been a gas, and I cannot wait to see this. You have no idea. I looked through. I'm like, oh my god, that's the interview I want right there. This is brilliant. So thank you so much.
Fantastic.
And if you want to check him out on his website, it's StimsonSnead.com and at Stimson Snead at Instagram. And check out Bleeding Ink. It's funny. I like it. I dug it. It made
It's
me cry.
oh, good, good.
And the
I bet I know which one.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So thank you very much. And until next time, I hope I do see you next year in Indy. It'd be cool. Bye, everyone.
Absolutely.